The trophy system is lying to you. On the surface, trophies seem so simple. You win a game, you go up 30. You lose a game, you go down 30. But what if I told you that number is lying to you? Today we're going to break down the invisible math behind your climb, and why even a fair system can mess with your head. Every match you play is basically a calculated bet. You win, you get 30 trophies. You lose, you drop 30 trophies. Seems fair, right? Well, let's do the math. If you flip a fair coin a million times, you'll land on roughly heads half the time and tails half the time. Well, same deal here. If your win rate is 50%, then over thousands of games, you're going to end up right where you started. It doesn't matter what deck you used or who you faced, it all balances out. That's what expected value is. At 50% win rate, your EV is exactly 0. You're not gaining trophies, but you're also not losing them either. You're just hovering. But that doesn't mean your trophy count sits still. You'll still swing up 300, then drop 300 the next day. That's just variance, a fancy way of saying randomness. Think of it like a squiggly line floating around the same spot. And that up and down movement, that's called standard deviation. Over time, it evens out. The longer you play, the flatter your graph gets, and you'll stay stuck in the same trophy range. But the second your win rate edges over 50%, this is where things really start to change. At 51%, your EV turns positive. That's where the real climb begins. So now you're probably asking yourself, well, what's the formula? Well, I'm here to tell you. Take your average win percentage, subtract your average loss percentage, and times that by the average trophies won per game. In Clash Royale, the benchmark is 30, so that's what we're going to use for this example. Over 100 games, that's 60 trophies. That might really not seem like a lot, but that's exactly how real progress works. Tiny edges, repeated enough times to matter. So now that we know this, if you have a 2% edge, you're gaining 0.6 trophies per match on average. It's math, it's real, but it sure as hell doesn't feel real. And that's because most players misunderstand where value actually comes from. Let me explain this. So let's imagine John makes a bet with Mary. The rules are, if a die rolls 1 through 4, John wins $10. If it rolls a 5 or a 6, Mary wins $10. That's a 66% chance for John, and a 33% chance for Mary. Now let's break down the math. 4 out of 6 times $10 equals a positive $6.66. 2 out of 6 times negative $10 equals a negative $3.33. The expected value is $3.34 per roll for John. So the second John accepts the bet, he's technically up money, even if the first roll is a loss. Now, the reason this is because the edge is not in the outcome. It's baked into the decision. That's the key. Clash Royale works the same way. If your win rate is 52%, you're making money every single time you hit the battle button. Not because of how the game ends, but because you made a good bet the moment it started. That's why pros can lose streaks and not tilt. They don't measure value in a single match. They measure it over hundreds. Trophies are just the receipts. If you're making smart plus EV decisions over and over again, the climb is guaranteed. It's just a matter of time. One of the biggest misconceptions in Clash is thinking that more trophies equals better play. But that's not always true. Trophies are a lagging indicator. They're the output, not the input. And when you confuse the two, you get a warped view of your own progress. You can play worse and still gain trophies. You can play way better and still lose trophies. Let that sink in for a second. Real improvement isn't about being at a new trophy high. It's about making better decisions. That's the actual input you can control. Ask yourself, did I leak elixir? Did I overcommit into a counter push? Maybe I misplayed that defense. Or simply put, did I play that game like someone with a rock in their head? Because the tighter your decisions, the tighter your EV. Let's say, hypothetically, right? You go from a 51% to a 54% win rate. On paper, that's just 3%. But in expected value, that's where it's going to shift your whole perspective. That's 0.6 trophies to 2.4 trophies per match. Over 100 matches, that's the difference between gaining 60 trophies and 240. That's 4 times the reward for a small change in your inputs. This is what separates top players. They're not just making better plays, they're compounding small advantages every single game. Not all 54% win rates are created equal, and not all decks have the same skill ceiling. Some decks, or what players like to call, brain dead. Yeah, I know you know what I'm talking about. Easy to play, consistent, and solid for mid-ladder. Now, I can already see you guys commenting. These decks are also played at the top ladder. I understand. Let's get into that. But they cap out. Even the best players in the world can only squeeze so much value from them. Think of it like a giant squeezing a lemon versus you squeezing a lemon. Obviously he will squeeze more than you, but you're limited to the juice inside the lemon. That means your expected value, your trophies per match, hits a ceiling no matter how well you play. One way to spot this, look at the gap between a pro's win rate and the average ladder player's win rate with the same deck. Take Blaze for example. Dude's a top 200 grinder running Eagle. Used to be in my clan, and let me just tell you, that dude's a character. But anyways, he averages a 53.9% win rate with it. Now I know this data is only from the past like 7 days, but we're gonna use it anyways. The rest of the community manages 53.4% win rate with the deck. That tiny gap says a lot. It means the deck is mechanically limited. You can only pilot so well before it plateaus. Now, let's compare that to Betfast. Many of you guys are gonna know that name. Widely known as the best Expo player in the entire world, and probably the best Expo player to ever touch the game. His win rate with Expo has been 55.6%. The community average in the same time frame has been 51.6%. That 4% difference, it's not luck, it's leverage. So what we have learned is a high skill deck gives you room to extract more value the better you play. Here's what that looks like over 100 games. With a 54% win rate, you're on average going to win 240 trophies. With a 56% win rate, you're going to win 360 trophies. That's 120 extra trophies, otherwise known as a 50% increase just by increasing your win rate 2%. So yeah, some decks make the climb easier, but if you want to climb faster and higher, pick a deck that actually rewards mastery. This is where most players fall off. They lose a couple of games and instantly panic switch, searching for that one magic deck that will finally get them out of their slump. Now, I know you guys at home watching this have fallen victim to this, as have I, but here's the truth. Every time you switch, you're just resetting your learning curve. You're going to face new decks, you're going to build new habits, and yeah, you're bound to screw up a few times. And if all you're doing is jumping between low skill ceiling decks, you're not becoming a better player. You're just shifting playstyles and calling it progress. Think about rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Yeah, that's going to be useful. Even the best decks won't carry you if your play is still negative EV. But if you lock in on one deck with a high enough ceiling, learn the matchups, track cycles, manage your elixir, you'll start winning more, even if the meta doesn't change. Because there's no deck that skips the grind, only decks that reward the grind more. Next time you feel stuck, ask yourself, am I really losing, or am I just not winning by enough? Trophy EV is the invisible grind that most players will never see. But once you understand it, you start seeing the game completely differently. If this gave you a new way to think about Clash, drop a like and hit subscribe. I'm breaking the game down from the inside out, and I look forward to being able to share more of it with you in the future.